What's up, everybody? It's your favorite show, Get a Bucket. I'm your host, Trey, and as usual, hope you're all having a wonderful, wonderful day. Today, we're going to talk about the GOAT discussion, specifically basketball-oriented, right? But before we do that, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Comment. Tell anyone who's anyone about the show. I'm trying to get the ratings up a little bit, just a little bit. And if you wonder where you heard this before, that's because you've been listening with me Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I greatly appreciate your support. Now, I was listening and thinking, I was listening to Master P, right? Old head rapper, Lil Romeo's dad, you know what I'm saying? And he was talking about the GOAT discussion. And he specifically brought up the fact that we are, I guess, creating a little too much negativity. And self-hate was the word that he actually used, the phrase that he actually used. But he brought up Braun versus Jordan, right, as the example. And I think there is some truth to that, right? A lot of times when we're talking about the GOAT discussion, a lot of the arguments really stem from, well, we don't really have a baseline definition for what's the GOAT. Not the GOAT, like what's your baseline definition? Because everyone's definition is a little bit different. But the thing about the GOAT discussion, ladies and gentlemen, there are, in fact, pros and cons to it. Like on the one hand, yes, it does create some negativity. All right, there is. But on the flip side, though, we get to expand on how the game has changed. New definitions for GOATs, right? Like that, things like that are important. But here are the things, okay? So let's talk about the pros for the GOAT discussion. So we get to keep the basketball history alive. Like even my show, Get a Bucket, I'm talking about people getting a bucket. I'm talking about people stopping players from getting a bucket. I'm talking about people getting assists that help players get a bucket. We're keeping the game of basketball, both WNBA, NBA, high school, college, Special Olympics, like we're keeping all of this alive. But it also introduces the game, right, to the younger generation. So now they get to think as they watch, well, who's the greatest player of all time? Like someone in today's era might say LeBron James over Jordan because they never saw Jordan play. So that discussion is going to be ongoing now because guess what? The old heads are still kicking. I'm a Jordan GOAT fan. So for me, I'm going to be battling some of these young heads who are saying LeBron James. But then what about the folks who are going to talk about Wemby? I've had someone already mention that Wemby's the greatest player who's played the game of basketball. Already. Heard you. I don't think that's accurate, but heard you. Again, it's keeping the game alive. It's creating the fan engagement, which, again, you got to have that if this is still a business, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. So the GOAT discussion does amplify the game on a multitude of levels. When we're talking about like statistical analysis, right? We are encouraging players, fans to follow stats. These are things that we always argue. Oh, well, and this is technically a stat. Jordan was 6-0 in the finals. Braun went to 10 straight championships. We got these many championships, this many MVPs, finals MVPs, points, rebounds, assists, turnover, blah, 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 blah. These are things that are talked about that help rationalize our answers for the GOAT discussion, ladies and gentlemen. It also gets to highlight different greatness. Okay, like different definitions of greatness. Some people prioritize winning, specifically championships. How about peak dominance, longevity, the skill aspect? Someone talks about Kyrie Irving as maybe the greatest player because he's the most skilled player in the game. I'm giving an example to be clear. Or Kevin Durant, hey, he's 50, 40, 90 from the career daggone near while giving you 27 points a game. That's pretty spectacular. So again, ladies and gentlemen, when we're talking about different definition of greatness, again, it's important to note that. Like, if you were to base my definition off of my show title, Get a Bucket, you would think I'm primarily focusing on scoring. No, my definition of greatness is a little bit different. To be clear, I like two-way players. Now, if you are going to be a scorer, if you are going to be offensive-minded, you have to dog everybody offensively all the time, and that's not easy to do, especially if you're a liability on defense. But that's my definition. Someone might look at a player like Luka Doncic, who doesn't really play too much defense, and say, hey, Luka's the best player I've ever seen because of what he can do on the offensive side of the ball. People talk about Jokic as the greatest player, and he's not a two-way player. So again, we have different definitions of greatness. We're celebrating different eras, right? Like people try to highlight Bill Russell's era, Will Chamberlain's era, same era to be clear. Just wanted to make sure I add both of those. But people highlight that era while at the same time slandering that era, which is kind of crazy. Or if we go to the WNBA side, okay, well, and again, WNBA is a little bit younger, a lot younger than the NBA. But again, the era that we saw with Lisa Leslie and Lauren Jackson to now when we're watching Asia Wilson and Brianna Stewart, the Paige Beckers, the Caitlin Clarks, like the different eras get highlighted. And in turn, again, we're keeping basketball alive. We're defining new definitions of greatness, and that's what helps keep the game of basketball energetic. Like, don't get me wrong, I love playing basketball. I love watching basketball, but it's the discussions too that help out as well. Like they genuinely do. If I'm just going out and just focusing on playing, I'm not in the NBA. Like I'm not caring to be in the NBA. So like maybe my care for basketball would dwindle. But no, these conversations, they genuinely do help. These conversations help inspire current players, whether to improve, give you something to focus on, give you a target goal, help you understand, okay, well, I might be nice at basketball, but the overarching scheme of basketball means where do I ultimately want to land when it's all said and done? These conversations help these younger players think like that, or the fans think like that. So again, I love the GOAT discussions. Those are the pros, okay? And again, they help out with the media in pocket. Like, again, we know these pros. How about the cons? It's impossible to compare eras perfectly. This is the con. Like, when we talk about the GOATs, right? How do you say, oh, well, Braun is better because this, or Jordan is better because this, and mention the eras? Because the eras do change, unfortunately. Like we had illegal defenses back in the day, hand checking, to now we got a 3-point emphasis. The pace, right? Pick and roll is the name of the game. Coaching has kind of dropped just a little bit in comparison to back in the day. Like there is a level of difference. So how do you compare the eras perfectly? Also, could we argue that team success gets overvalued? I think we could. Don't get me wrong. Like when I say overvalued team success, I'm not talking about championships. I'm simply talking about just winning. Because again, ladies and gentlemen, and you can also say it's undervalued as well too, because sometimes you have to be in the right situation in order to win. But sometimes when we're talking about the overvalued standpoint, we're focusing on the front office decisions, coaching, okay, supporting cast. Like we've seen times I've heard let's put it this way. I've heard people try to complain about someone as great as Scottie Pippen. Oh, he's not as good as he is. Well, that's how you feel, then that means Jordan had a lot more to work with. I didn't have as much to work with as we thought. Now that person is a little wild too, to be clear, because Scottie Pippen is still one of the greatest players of all time. I'm not saying the GOAT, I'm saying one of the greatest players that we've seen. But you can make that statement for a lot of players too. But again, when we're talking about team success, ladies and gentlemen, we add in that this player is better than this player because of team success. That might not necessarily be the case. Using Jordan and Braun as an example, I don't think the notion is, oh, well, Jordan was on the better team. That's why he was better than, than Braun. Like Jordan actually won 6 MVPs or Finals MVPs. He was viewed as the closer on his team. He was viewed as the best player on his team, the best player in his era. So that's more of a reason why we're talking about Jordan being better than LeBron. And again, it's subjective, but it's not necessarily the team success. Because to be fair, the first Cleveland stint for LeBron James can't knock him for that. I can't. Jordan was on a better team, but also to be clear, both were small market teams. And when we think about it, I mean, Chicago got lucky with drafting Scotty. So, ladies and gentlemen, team success can be overvalued. Or we got the confirmation bias. Jordan never lost in a finals. Braun made it to 10 finals. Kareem, well, I guess now Braun, scored the most points. Bill Russell has 11 championships. People try to focus on one small thing. And I'm not saying that, those accomplishments are small. But there are other factors, other reasons why we could say this person's a GOAT. But we kind of minimize our reasons would say that we don't think as much as we should have. Or we're going to disrespect other all-time greats. Using this as an example, I don't have Braun as my GOAT. I don't even have him in my top 3. But when I do that, though, I'm not being disrespectful. I actually am being objective. And when I say that, if you say he's your GOAT, I may disagree, but I understand why you say that. I can at least hear the argument. But a lot of times, all-time greats are disrespected. I just said Scottie Pippen is an all-time great and made sure I provided accurate context. I'm not saying he's the GOAT. I'm not saying he's top. I'm saying he's an all-time great. If you're an if you're an NBA 75 player, we can make a statement that you're an all-time great. Like we will hype up Jordan versus LeBron, but overlook Kareem, overlook Kobe, overlook Tim Duncan, overlook Hakeem, overlook Wilt, Bill, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Shaq, Oscar Robertson, Steph Curry. Like we'll overlook some of these all-time great players and act like they don't even have a chance at being a GOAT or the GOAT. So that's kind of tough to hear. And again, a lot of times we're using this off of emotion rather than objective, right? So again, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about the GOAT discussion. While it can be positive, I got to admit it has been negative. Like endless goalpost moving, rings matter until they don't. The longevity matters until it doesn't. MVPs matter until they don't. Finals record matters until it doesn't. Like there are constant goalposts moving, which I told you all. The real crux of the problem is there's no clear definition for everybody on what their definition of GOAT is. It's not stated. So not everybody's arguing a point, but have different definitions. So it's going to always be ongoing. But to go up to that first point though that I made when I was talking about the pros, that helps the game of basketball continue. Now, could we say, does this add or even create a toxic fan base? It can. It definitely can. But again, ladies and gentlemen, there's going to be pros and cons to everything. There's a yin and yang to everything. There's a balance in life. So while on one hand, I can say the GOAT discussion might not be the best conversation. And to be honest with you, some people, I don't have that discussion with them. On the other hand, it can be important. It can be helpful because understanding what someone else's definition of what a GOAT is can help expand even your own mind. Like as the host of my show, Get a Bucket, I am not afraid to change my perception on what the GOAT looks like. If someone comes up with a point that makes me think about the game of basketball and how I view it differently, all right, I'll hear that. But ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you gotta love the GOAT discussion because it does help amplify basketball, even though it can be a little negative. But I'm curious, ladies and gentlemen, what's your thoughts of the GOAT discussion? What is your GOAT definition? I mean, I'm very curious, actually. How often do you participate in the GOAT discussion? Do you enjoy participating in the GOAT discussion? Do you view it more as a con or more as a pro? I'm curious. But ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that does conclude the end of the episode. So again, thank you all for listening. Please make sure to like, subscribe, comment, tell anyone about the show. My name is Trey. I'm the host of Get a Bucket. I hope you're all having a good one. Take care.